Hey, listen, I expect nothing less. And with that being said, guys, welcome to the podcast. I have the one and only Tom here with me. Tom Roy, I appreciate you being on the podcast. This is the Info Profit Podcast. We're here to showcase and highlight different coaches and consultants from different parts of the industry to talk about their journey, how they got to where they are, how they're, utilizing their skill sets, their abilities to, help, I would say, other individuals become better through the skill set of like coaching and consulting. So with that being said, Tom, I just want to say thank you so much for for coming on, and I look forward to being able to highlight you, your business, specifically what you're doing out there in the world.
Let's see if you appreciate it when I'm done, Jermaine. But thank you. Appreciate the invite. And
Oh man, hey,
see
listen,
what
I'm already enjoying it.
happens.
So I'm gonna give a little introduction. I was actually very, very impressed, Tom, about like your credentials, which I would love for you to explore a little bit more about your background and kind of how where you got to where you are now. But like with over 25 years of experience in like the coaching and athletic field, and the fact I saw that you also have a park that's being named after you, right? The UPI
Yeah,
Park, right? Which I don't think most people understand what you have to do in order to have a park potentially get named after you.
it's
But
a
that is,
baseball park, so it's not like a kids park. So it's a
hey,
baseball stadium.
that is still impressive, but I mean, you have plenty of years and experience in that field, right? You were what was it, 3 years as the head coach of a high school and 15 years as a coach for a Christian collegiate level school. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, two NAIA schools and then a public high school, and primarily with baseball. But I also was a football assistant and some basketball. Yeah,
Just
kind
a
of when we
triple
talk
threat.
about when we talk about coaching, it's been a uh, that's what I thought I was going to do all my life, literal coaching a sport, and it's turned into more of now for the past 40 years, helping men and women get to know who they are and why they're here and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the incredible part though about like this field is how it transforms and evolves over time. Because I always tell people, like as a coach and who consults with like other people, typically when I feel like I'm coaching someone, I honestly feel like I'm coaching myself. So it's like it's a weird like reverse practice to where it's like okay, now you start to evolve because as you're helping more people you're ultimately helping yourself, and now you're starting to transcend in a way to this new act of service of what I like to call it. But yeah, man, I would love for you to kind of tell the people a little bit about yourself, your background, right? I mean, I can name off the list, but I would love the highlights of, I would say, for yourself and your journey of how you kind of got here to where you are now as well.
Yeah, I had 74 birthdays. That's how I got here.
That's a blessing.
I think when I turned 17, for some reason, I signed a bonus contract with the San Francisco Giants, and then they figured out my talent and sent me home. So I went to school to be a radio announcer, a TV radio, and I did that for a little bit. And then I went to college after all of that. I was primarily in high school a basketball player, but when I signed a pro contract, I eliminated all opportunities to play at the collegiate level back then. Now they've changed that. If you're a pro in one sport, you can play in
Yeah.
another. But it did get me to the school, and right out of it was hired as a head baseball coach, in particular assistant football coach at a newly consolidated high school, which I absolutely loved. A lot of hours, coaching right from football, basketball, baseball, scouting, all that kind of stuff. Then I was asked to be a pitching coach. I did that at two different locations, Huntington University and Grace College, and then the head coach at Grace College for a number of years. And then God put on my heart to start an organization called Unlimited Potential,
Mm.
which
Like the name.
basically it's to reach, teach, train, and send major league professional baseball players out
Okay.
into the world. Christian organization. I'm an ordained minister, even though I wouldn't wear my hair like this as a coach.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I got the boss working now. So I was a chaplain for the Chicago White Sox for a while. I did quite a bit of traveling with major league players during the off season. I would take them on missions trips. So I've been in God's economy to 68 countries and spoken to a
That's
lot of teams. And then
that's
one on
a lot.
one, say what?
That's a lot. You said 16 or six, like 60?
6'8", six
6'8".
eight.
That's
Yeah,
a
but the Vatican's one of them. So I was in Italy, and then the Vatican's its own place.
got you.
But a lot of the time was one on one with the players, talking life, talking what is truth. I believe the scriptures, the Bible is truth. And so a lot of that during my 38 years as the founder president. And then in 2019, I retired and started another group, which you mentioned, Shepherd Coach Network. And we're working with athletic directors, coaches, and some athletes to be a coach to them. Okay.
Hmm.
I just had my eyes opened here recently to the role of athletic directors and what a lonely, busy life that is. We have a local high school. That guy has 81 coaches under him, and he has influence on them, right? But he's also very busy. And in the community, you never know if they're mad at you because of the golf coach, the baseball coach, the swimming coach, or the football coach. You never know.
Yeah, they're just
So
mad.
yeah, yeah. You can't eat in a restaurant hardly. So we're doing a
Correct.
lot more now with athletic directors. And then I have another group called Veritas that hires me individually, one on one, to work with business professionals. But I have to say, the primary audience I've had are professional athletes and then coaches.
Okay, well, listen, if nobody's giving you your flowers while you're here, I'm going to give you your flowers while you're still here because that is,
Allergic to them, probably.
well, we'll figure something out. But that is truly, truly incredible. Like, that's an extensive resume right there. So one, I say thank you for your service. That's what I consider coaching and consulting to be, is like an act of service. I appreciate that. And you hit on a couple different topics that I would love to dive a little bit deeper on, right? Because personally, when I first got involved, like in the coaching realm, it was like fitness training because I was an athlete myself too. And then I transformed myself, and then other people wanted me to transform them. And then I went from physical fitness to more business kind of transformation. But I found myself, and I think this happens with a lot of coaches and consultants, is you just find yourself like falling into it, right? Like it's not typically something when someone's like, I'm going to be a coach or I'm going to be a consultant of this particular like niche. It's somehow they just end up either getting called or it just rolls over from what they're currently doing. And it sounded like that's what happened with you. But my question for you is, what was that like aha moment where you realized like, oh, okay, I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to pursue this act of being a coach, being a consultant type of, character in this world. And what made you, I guess, decide to continue doing that once you realized, like, okay, I'm doing this now?
Yeah. Well, from my Bible, I understood that older men are supposed to help younger men. So that's a concept of truth that I tried to take throughout my life with these ball players. And I remember a fairly famous ball player. I got done with a time with him, and I said, dude, I know you don't need any, at that time I was 50, any 50-year-old friends. And he just stopped and he got real sober. He said, yes, I do. And that was an aha
Yes.
moment for me because I think the world would say, man, these guys have everything. But the reality
Mhm.
is they're 20 some years old and they're being thrown a lot of money and a lot of pressure and all kinds of stuff, right? So that
Right.
would be the start, I guess, the aha moment that biblically I believe I'm supposed to. And then when I got old, I couldn't help but think, okay, older men. Now that title is legit. I'm an older man. Those
Okay.
older,
It's just now.
yeah, yeah. By the way, I don't have gray hair. It's Arctic blonde, just so you
Oh,
know.
good.
That's what I'm called. Yeah. Yeah, Arctic blonde. But it kind of just rolled into it because I thought, what the heck? I'm now older than a lot of the coaches, and
Hmm.
maybe have more contemporaries, or if not contemporaries, people that are in that 50 to 70 range, age range that I can help out. But also, my sweet spot with business people and even with coaches is probably right after college to about age 30 because they're right in that little niche where they're trying to figure out who they are. Do they want to climb the corporate ladder? What is their mission in life? What is their purpose? All that kind of stuff. I would rather have them, and that's what I tell people. I want to get these, if possible, young men in particular, between 20 and 30, and have
Hmm.
input in their life. Now, I've
Yeah.
had older people that I've worked with, but that seems to be the sweet spot right now.
Of course. And I mean, that's pretty common too, right? Like you have an ideal ICP that you target to then help. but you always still attract anyone who's still looking for that help. Now, from that, because I mean, you've done this for so long, do you remember like or recall the biggest transformation you've had with a person? Like, do you recall that time or who that person is, and probably like where they were to like what ended up happening to them throughout that course of you like coaching them?
Yeah, I would say initially, biggest transformation happened in me because I
Ooh,
think anytime you get into this, you realize that you've not graduated, you haven't turned the tassel yet, and you're always learning. And so I believe a good teacher is one who's always learning.
yes.
So I would say that throughout my journey of faith, I've been the one that's benefited from counseling. I don't call it counseling, but coaching. There we go. Young,
Yeah.
primarily young men. But I have had some young ladies too that were in the coaching field that came alongside. So I think that me for sure. But secondly, because some of the people I worked with, I don't like to name names because they're real people. I think
Of
sometimes you
course.
see these professional athletes and you think they're just, like comic strip characters.
Yep.
They're real people with families. But I've seen men in particular who have seen their purpose be bigger than baseball. I love it when they say to me, "Well, God made me to be a baseball player." And I go, "Okay, what are you going to do after age 33?" You know, because most careers are not what they think. They think they're going to play to 50 and then go in the Hall of Fame and be hired as an announcer or whatever.
Hmm.
That's the kind of thing that I get fired up about. And so I've seen people really all of a sudden the light goes on that their purpose to be on earth is way more than to hit a ball or throw a ball. And so I have a number of stories like that, even guys who have gone on trips with me and have come home and started non for profits to help their communities and
Hmm.
to have real purpose, not just money, purpose. And I think of any of us, if we look at our lives, did we have a purpose? And
Yes.
too often we look at some people, what's my legacy? I think if you have purpose every day, the legacy is going to happen.
Mhm. I 100% agree with you on that one. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned that because I had a conversation with someone as well where it's like changing the perspective. And that's what you're talking about right now, right? If you change the perspective and realize that profits comes from the purpose and what you're currently doing right now, like these baseball players or athletes, what you're doing is just a vehicle that's going to help you to get to the destination that realizes what your actual impact is going to be and what you're here to do. This is just giving you that stepping stone. Maybe it's character development. Maybe it is like a revenue generating system to then use these tools and assets that you've gained through your career to create your impact and actually live your purpose. And I think that what I'm hearing is like you're helping them to identify that possibility in their life. Correct?
And I'm trying to come from it again. I'm very straight up front with you, Jermaine. I'm a believer in Jesus and I believe in his teachings. And so the neat thing is, I don't have to make stuff up. It's been
Yeah,
there
it's there in the
1,000 years.
book.
Yeah, yeah. And about every topic is covered, not all topics, but most as it relates to character. And so I have a book that I can go to and check out, what does God say about how this should look? And that's
Yeah.
just my particular niche. And so I really enjoy seeing these people, the lights go on, not because it's my truth, but because it's his truth. And
Correct.
that's been a lot of fun. So yeah, it's neat to see men and women get
Yeah.
a real idea of why they get up and
Correct. And I'm happy you asked that or answered that because that was part of another question I was going to ask you as, every great coach has like their own philosophy, right? That they kind of live off of or stem from. And for you, it sounds like it is the word of God. I would say, how would you really describe your philosophy when it is coaching like these athletes or people that you've encountered? If it is utilizing that as a tool or just like your life experience, how does that philosophy stem or where does that philosophy stem from and how you've been able to like help people with it?
yeah, I hope it comes from truth and out of the Word of God and experience. And my three things that I share, whether it's with coaches, players, professionals, my philosophy after my faith in Christ is people are more important than program. Program is more important than winning. Winning is very important. You're going to spend 90% of your time on the business, on the whatever, the sport or whatever. But I really want to, have them focus on people themselves because the better the leader is, the better he can lead. But then to say, and that's why I came up with the title shepherd coach, when you think of what a shepherd is, man, it's not a glamorous job, but they know all their sheep and they know what makes them go and they put them all in one. You have to have sheepdogs. There's all kinds of analogies. You can't do it on your own. So you need sheepdogs and you need to know where the feed is and you need to know the insects and all that. But if the goal is to concentrate on the individual rather than the widget that you're selling or the wins and losses, I don't minimize that because that's what gives you capital to have the platform to do what you do. So I'll give you
Yep.
an example of that, Jermaine. When I was first hired, and I can't believe I did this, but Superintendent is interviewing me, and I said, "Well, here's one thing I know: I don't want 17-year-old kids to determine if my wife and I are going to have an income. So here's my philosophy." And he still hired me. But I said, what I can guarantee you is that I will care about the people
Mm.
and to the best of my ability, I'll put together a program as a literal football coach, whatever. I really believe we're going to win, but I can't guarantee that. But I can say that men in particular, because that's who I was coaching, will hopefully walk away from this program better adults, better parents, better husbands, that kind of thing. And they bought it, and I'm glad because I needed the job. But that's kind of been my philosophy. And so that doesn't mean that I didn't spend 90% of my time on the field, on the court, wherever it was, because that's what you have to do, right? You're scouting, you're in college, you're recruiting. But my real focus wanted to be on those men that came into my flock, if you will, to be able to invest in their lives more than this is how you turn a double play or throw a slider. And here's where I'm getting it from, very upfront with them. I'm not hiding it. And I'm not saying that they have to be followers of Christ, but that's where I'm coming from. So that's kind of an answer that I would give to you.
Yeah. Hey, I like it. There's a lot in there to unpack, and in my mind, like, or what comes to mind as you're saying that, right? I feel like a lot of coaches when they're getting started, and I'm interested to see how, like, when you first got started, the challenges you face of owning and becoming this coach, right? And then how has the transformation of what you were providing originally as a coach has transformed over to what you're doing now? And the reason I ask that is because I remember when I was doing fitness coaching and it moved more over to mindset shifting, right? And high performance. So it's like dealing with the actual person and the habits and how they're maneuvering as an individual versus the actual like physical activity that they were doing, and having those conversations, and people are like, I just want the activity, like, just how many reps do I have to do or what do I have to eat? I'm like, no, 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 I know what, I know you think you want this, but we have to solve the bigger problem. And sometimes getting people over that hump can be hard, especially like when you're first getting started, because you have to do the, I would say, a societal or public attraction thing that people want. And then as you're helping them with what they think they want, you're actually solving for what they need, which what it sounds like for you is helping these athletes really understand like the purpose and like what they should really be focused in on as an athlete, but just more or less as a human being, which then impacts their impact as an athlete. So how was that journey of kind of like realizing, okay, I'm not just transforming them physically, I want to switch over to like something bigger than that? Because I feel like a lot of coaches struggle with that as well.
Sure. I'll give you a little analogy. I've done a lot of baseball camps for little kids, and it's
Hmm.
crazy. I'll take the pitchers because I was a pitcher, and I'll have them write down before the camp what they want to learn. Almost every one of them wants to learn a knuckleball,
Yeah,
which,
that's
which they'll never use.
playable.
So what do I do is I scratch that itch. The first thing I do is I go, guys, here's how you hold a knuckleball. Now they're 10 years old, and they can hardly get the ball to the plate, but I find out what is important to them. And so
Correct.
maybe that's how this journey started to say it's not about just what I know, but I want to know who you are. And then the fact is, I never was good, nor did I coach an individual sport. Football, baseball, basketball. Those are my three sports. And
Okay.
it's not the individual, but it's knowing how to work together as a team and all the things that you learn from being a literal sports coach have
Hmm.
great follow through. And I think you'll see a lot of your corporations hire speakers that have been professional coaches or college coaches because of the very thing that we almost take for granted because it's what we do every day. I especially love football because with the football, I was, yeah, offensive coordinator, worked with the backs a lot, and we'd, do our thing and then separate into 4 or 5 groups and everybody do their thing and bring them together. And it sometimes worked. It was kind of cool. The linemen are learning how to read, the defense is learning keys for what the guards do and all that kind of stuff. The tight ends are running their stuff. The running backs, we're working with them, and you bring them together. That's kind of a picture of what we're trying to do, right? As coaches of men and women that are in the professional world, meaning business or whatever, non for profit or whatever. And
Right.
so I think the carryover was just a matter of saying, I've done this generically, or maybe that's not the term, but it's been my function. And
Yeah.
how do we take this now? Don't be intimidated by the business world. They're coming to you asking, tell us what you know about this. And it is about teamwork. It's about getting your life straight first and then seeing the players for who they are, the whole thing. And I don't know, you said you played sports. I don't know what that was, but, and I don't know if you ever coached them, but if you were a player, you understood coaching is a different level than playing.
It is. Yeah. So I played football growing up. Funny enough, I was a D1 cheerleader. I went to Syracuse University. So I was an
That's
athlete. And then throughout being an athlete, I would work with the trainers as well too. Cause then I started like studying for my like NASM and everything. Cause I was like, oh, I'm really good at this. People already come up to me for physical like tips or training tips. So I was like, okay, well, I might as well study it in the practice. Got the certification, so then I started working with the athletes. So I was on a bit on both sides, where I'm like, I am the athlete, but I'm also helping athletes at the same time, and it is very different. And it's interesting to see like how you train yourself versus train others at the same token. And I think there's a lot of, I won't say insight, but you kind of mentioned it where you're like the biggest transformation you had with someone was yourself. I think every coach probably goes through that because just the different perspective and the I guess the amount of at bats you're having with so many different people that you're talking to, and you're collecting so much data, right? To when you're then using it for yourself, you're like skyrocketing the progress because you're understanding from other people relate to you or don't relate to you as well. But yes, to answer your question, I've been on both sides.
a question for you now. Maybe you've been asked this, but I've been a college coach and a scout, and you're always looking for measurables. As a cheerleader, do you guys count how high you throw the girl? Do you
Oh,
say
oh,
10 feet, 7 inches, and that's the world record? Do you do all that stuff?
yeah, well, I mean, for more fun, yes. If we're looking to like set that kind of expectation, or if we're looking to like if we're going to nationals and we're understanding the competition of what their capabilities are as far as like maybe height and stunts and like pacing, then yes, we would take those into account and be like, okay, who like the combination of people that's on our team and the power that they can explode if we do say for instance decide that we want to break the height that somebody else has already done. One, does it make sense? Two, is it going to be safe on the way coming down? But three, what's possible in that time duration if we elevate them an extra like 2 feet, because sometimes it's not even an extra 10 feet, it's just like an extra two to give them space and time to pull another trick. So yeah, we do kind of take that.
Well, just looking at you, I don't think people understand a male cheerleader is a lot about strength, ability, athletic ability. It's
Yeah.
not going clapping and
No.
that happens, but it's the gymnastics part of it almost that takes to have the foundation of a guy like you.
Correct. Yeah, and that was the interesting thing because I had a when I went to I didn't go there. I didn't go to college for cheerleading. I was at college, and then I met friends, and one of the friends I met, he was on the team. He was like, "Dude, you're already strong. Like, you should come." Like, he was like, "Just come with me real quick." I was like, "Okay." And then I ended up finding out he was a cheerleader, and I was just watching everyone do like perform basically and do their stunts. And he was like, just humor me.
Yep.
Toss this person up. And I did it. And the coach was immediately like, hey, we need you. I was like, okay. So obviously they offer different things for it, but you don't realize how taxing or how demanding that is until you're in it and you're like, oh, okay, this is like an actual sport because of the amount of contact that happens and throughout this whole, I would say, performance. So yeah, there's a lot more to it than people think of just like simply throwing people in the air. But
I think I need to do an interview with you so people understand how rough that was. But anyway, go ahead, Jermaine. Go ahead.
I'm definitely open to it. Now, Tom, I know for me personally, I had an interesting journey kind of going back and forth between like accepting being a coach, not accepting being a coach slash consultant, but I found it to be one of the most rewarding things in my life personally, which it sounds like it is for you too. And I know it all comes with its own set of challenges, right? So what are some of the biggest hurdles you've seen yourself overcome, like on the business side of being a coach, having this identity and now offering like the service to these people? Because there's a difference between someone seeing you and they're like, hey, you help with this specific, we need it, versus I know I could provide this value to your team, which would then 10x, right? What's been like that journey and some of those hurdles, I guess, that you've experienced throughout this, at the company itself?
I think that continuing education is critical as you try to understand different cultures that you're walking into. But for me, part of the transition was, as a coach, you're baseball coach, football coach, you're sharing information all the time. And
Correct.
as a life coach, I'll call it, or whatever we want to call ourselves, I want to ask more what questions than have a lecture. And I think for me, I'm used to standing in front of a group of men and saying, this is what we're doing today, this is how it is, this is how it is, this is how it is. Instead of coming in to first of all say, so how's your week been? Make it personal, and then ask a lot of what questions. What have you been doing, or what do you think about, to get them to talk.
Yep.
Because especially as we get older, we do have a lot of experience, and we probably get a little arrogant thinking I've got a lot of answers and you need to hire me because of my answers. But I think the biggest part for me to learn was to say, you know what, I need to hear what they want, not just to give them information every time. And so I tell them up front that in my sessions, I'm going to ask them about them a lot. And if we get to the material, we get to it. But this is about being here for you as an older. I want to be here for you. And that's most of the people that come to me. They
Mhm.
see something in me, if nothing else, because I'm 74 years old, to say, I want to learn from you. Okay.
Mhm.
But the big learning curve for me was I'm not there to lecture them. I'm there to pull information out of them and then give them some perspective. And it may be on what their gifts are, or how they've, their self talk is brutal, their image is wrong, who they are, how they think about themselves. So the what questions for me tend to be really important. And I have to, before I meet with a person, say, okay, I know I want to tell them this, 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 and this, but I want to find out, what do you believe, before I'm able to speak into it. That was probably the biggest, because when I'm teaching baseball, and I'm not going, what do you think about hitting the curveball? No, I'm teaching them how to hit the curve. We're talking about it, and then
Correct.
I'm
Yeah.
watching. So that to me, like right now, I'm doing a lot of talking. In the sessions, if I'm doing a lot of talking, I'm like that umpire. You want umpires to be really good and nobody knows they're there. And
Yeah.
if in a session you keep talking, you're like the umpire that's making calls so the fans know that you're there.
Of
So
course.
I think that part of asking, and this is what I came up with too, that often there's more power in a good question than always having an answer.
Yeah.
So that would
That's
be the succinct part of it.
so being curious, asking questions, and in a way you're consulting them more than just coaching them. And I know that's like for me, like a lot of my life has been in the sales space, and one of the biggest things that I was taught as being a salesperson is you never want to sell with them, you always want to consult them like you would with a doctor. Like before you go into a doctor's office, they're not immediately prescribing you something, they're
Yeah.
asking you questions to figure out what's going to be the prescription in the first place. So no difference in being a coach. It's like, yeah, you already have knowledge and information that will be useful for them, but we got to first figure out like what's going on and then order to get them to that point. But it's being curious, and it's constantly not just being curious about the practice, it's being curious about the person that's in front of you so that you can properly prescribe or diagnose or create that solution not for them but also with them at the same time, if I'm understanding that.
Yes, and one of the first things I tell them is I'm not going to make decisions for you. Part of becoming, in my case, a man is that
Mhm.
you've got to take responsibility for your decisions. But I'll be more than happy to do the gymnastics, or what I call the long math, with you.
Yeah.
I hated long math. I knew the answer. What's 10 plus 10?
I know, right?
Or close to 20. But anyway, But
Yeah.
when you have these long problems and then you get graded off because you didn't do the long math. Well,
Yeah.
I'm learning now I want to do the long math with them so that so I know what they're thinking, but also they hear. And a lot of times, as you probably know, they'll go, that may be a little twisted what I just said there. That's not reality. This is just the marinade I've been in for so long that I need to
Correct.
change my thinking. So, yeah, and in the beginning, I would say this probably as a coach too. You know, one of the things kids hate is being overcoached
Hmm.
because it's all about you then. And
Yeah.
the struggle for me in the beginning was I had all this information, I want to get it out. So I'm vomiting on them all this stuff. And like we both have said, they may not care about 80% of it. So let's find out where they're at and have the confidence to know that they're there because they trust me.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's just a father image, quite honestly, when I'm dealing with that age kid.
Yeah.
They all have father wounds of some sort, and they just want somebody older to listen to them. And
Hmm.
so that's how I started. And that was a big change to instead of blow the whistle, yell, get over here, do that, is to say, what about you?
Correct. Yeah, that's pretty good. Now, with these people, because your typical age range or ICP that you work with is like that 18 to 30-year-old, are they like coming to you, or are you going to them like individually or as an organization? Like, how does that process look when you're deciding to work with these people? Like, do you put yourself out there for people to find you? Of course, you got your website, right? Which highly recommend if you guys are watching this, definitely go take a look, especially if you're an athlete. We will have it in the description as well. But how do you go about acquiring those kind of clients?
That's a
Right.
great question. I have a couple of contacts. So first of all, if it's coaches or athletic directors, because I was in that industry, God has given me a list of people that I know, and then they tell people about, Shepherd Coach, and
Yeah.
that's how it happens. When it comes to individual, it's usually again word of mouth, or there's a company here locally that it's called Veritas, and I'm one of their coaches in their stable, if you will.
Yeah.
And so when they come across that 18 to 30-year-old that wants to be spiritually as well as business wise or whatever, they get in touch with me. And so that's kind of fun. That's kind of nice that I'll get the people through that pipeline, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just being available, letting them know you're available. I speak at a couple things, and people, maybe there are one or two out there that say, "I want
Mhm.
to hear what this guy has to say." The other side is at my age, I'm not in it to say I've got to make $1,500,000, right? I'm in
Yeah.
it, I think, with pure motives. Obviously, charge, but I
Yeah.
want to care for people. I want to care for people.
Mhm.
They come from various, I guess, Jermaine, all of that to say there are various funnels that come into uh, eventually get in touch with me.
Okay. The reason I asked, I know for a couple people like we've talked with, and like, right, we live in a technological age now, right? And especially for your experience, you've seen the journey and like how the different roles have changed, the methods, the tools that's being used. And the one common mistake, and I've gone through this, I'm pretty sure you probably have as well, is going from being the coach, right? What I call like the technician, going from being the coach and then like the business owner. Like, how do you scale the business while still being the practitioner, being the coach who's diagnosing, and like facing that challenge between both, where it's like I got to scale, but I also got to do the work. How have you been able to like handle that? Because I know that's pretty common for new people looking to get into the field. Is I want to take on more clients, or I want to have a bigger impact, but I can't then like grow the business because I'm in the business. How does that work?
Well, again, maybe this comes from coaching, but everybody or many people know who Walt Disney is, but his brother was Roy Disney. And Roy did all that back shelf stuff so that Walt could be his creative self. And that's what I found. I had to identify what I was good at and what I wasn't good at. And so a lot of that business stuff, whether it's my tax people or an accountant or whatever, in the beginning, you got to do it yourself, right? But I just found that that was not having my socks roll up and down, you know. And it's kind of like
Yeah.
evaluating, kid's playing little league and he's a shortstop, but by the time he gets to college, dude, you don't have the skill set. You got to play left field or catcher or whatever it is. You evaluate the skill set, so it's a self-evaluation, and in a sense of humility and yet also wisdom to say, you know what, I can do that, but I need to get somebody that gets excited to do that so that I can be as effective as I can be in what I'm doing. So it costs you a little more at times, but in the long run, first of all, you don't, my situation, I don't have the, oh no, I hope I filled that form. I hope I did this. I hope I did that. But it frees me up to say next and to be fresh. As you know, you can't coach 8 hours a day. Next, 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 next.
Yeah.
You don't give 100. Yeah,
Yeah.
wears you down, man, wears you out. And you start looking at them not as people. I want to really empathize, maybe sympathize, but at least empathize to be able to help them get to the next level. And if you're doing it like you know, 8 in a row, that ain't going to happen. That's
Yeah.
tough to do. So it's a learning again, learning a process and then saying, you know what, I may be the quarterback, but if I don't have a good left tackle, I'm going to be on my butt most of the day. And that's
Yeah.
my, I'm looking for left tackles to help.
Okay, because that's the thing, right? You wear all the hats in the beginning, and then as you continuously grow, you figure out which hats to delegate, which ones you do find more enjoyment in, right? Maybe you don't like to take care of the books, maybe you don't like to reach out and kind of acquire new clients, or maybe it's just you don't like the follow up work. Right. And as much technology is getting pushed out nowadays, especially with AI, I don't know if you guys are utilizing some AI tools. It's been helpful. It's been a lot easier for people to get into this field, quote unquote, because now you have the ability to manage easier than you did years ago, right? I guess for you, what would you say is like some of the biggest systems or tools you've utilized to help you to get that peace of mind to then focus on the actual clients themselves within your business?
Biggest tool is me, meaning making mistakes. And I say, you're such a tool. What's going on there? But, I mean, you have things like QuickBooks and you have, different things like that that help you along the way. But
Of
it's
course.
really cool when you all of a sudden can say, you know what, those tools are good, but they have to be in the hands of somebody that knows how to use them. And,
Yes.
but we both have talked about this now. When you first start, you've got to be it all. When I was a radio announcer, I would open the place in the morning and bring in if they had milk delivered, they didn't, but I'm just saying that, and
Yeah.
turn the lights on and vacuum the back room. And, after you're there a while, you realize, wait a minute, I'm hired to be an announcer. I'm not here to do all that stuff. And then other people
Correct.
come alongside. So when you mention tools, if I need professional tools, meaning to figure out different strengths and weaknesses, that's where I go to Veritas, this company that I work with. And I just say, you know what, you're registered to do that. This is something that you enjoy doing. Here's a person I'd like to give that test to. Will you evaluate it and all that kind of stuff? But my biggest tool, other than the business stuff, is the Bible. And so, when I'm looking for answers, I go there. And so it's probably different than a lot of business people and how they do it. But you're right, there is a business side to it, just like there is with being a sports coach. This
Correct.
ministry that I'm the head of, it turned out to be an international thing. There are a lot of balls to be spinning, man. And if you don't humble yourself and say, I need other people that know how to use those tools, you're just going to
Right.
crash and burn.
Yeah, and I've had that personally happen a couple years ago when I first got into like the coaching business side of it, and I realized I was just like I was I don't say over my head. I just didn't implement the correct tools and people in place quick enough to not feel overwhelmed and swamped. And thankfully now I'm like, okay, there's tools out there, right? Like a chat GPT or a QuickBooks, or you have a Calendly and you have all these other resources where it's like, okay, it at least makes it more manageable. Right? Like for us personally, like if we had to wave a magic wand, one tool we're looking for currently is like, how do we make sure we get more awareness out there for people about like who we are, what we do, and like what's our purpose to then hopefully like make a bigger impact. And then someone was like, hey, start a podcast. I was like, okay, the podcast is a tool that we can share other people's, like journey and the impact of like you should, if you have a passion, if you have knowledge, if you have an expertise or a skill set, create a coaching offer, create a consulting offer because you already have the knowledge ahead of someone else and you can help them with that. And you never know where that can stem from.
Yeah. I've done, on YouTube channel and that, if you go there, I have little like 2 minute things that I challenge, coaches. Hey, have you thought of this? And how about your spouse? And just little snippets like that. And then every morning I send out either a verse or some positive statement, giving credit to whoever the author was. Every day I have different groups of people that I get up and manually put that in the phone, which is crazy. I've got one software though that helps me with that a little bit now. But all those little
Yeah.
touches like that, opportunities we have here. So the podcast is beautiful because you're gaining credibility by not only who you have on, but the things you're asking, and they're seeing, oh, I like that guy. But I try to stay in front of them by giving them information. When you say tools, I want to give you stuff so that you see that there's some value here, but that I care is more important.
Yeah.
So those little 1 or 2 minute videos really were cool for me,
Yeah, and that's something, especially nowadays. That's all you really need. Like I tell people, my biggest thing, if I'm talking to someone, is I'm not looking to give you the whole playbook. I'm looking to give you the one insight that's needed for you to just get to the next step. That's going to help you to then like get everything running and spinning. Because sometimes that's all people need. So when you have those short clips, it may be that one insight, that one piece of information that you mentioned, and it's like everything else starts to click for them, and now they're off to the races. So that's why I love stuff like this, because it can be right. This is going to be an hour long podcast, and maybe there's only one thing someone really needed, that what you said, and now their trajectory over the next 5 years is already set because they already had the rest of the foundation. They just needed to hear it again or in a different perspective and realize like, oh, okay, this is the tool that I need that Tom told me about. Okay, awesome. Now I'm off to the races. So I appreciate that. But I gotta ask, man, what is the vision? What's the bigger vision? I know you've been doing it for a while, but what's the vision, right? We're here 2025, let's say 2030. What's the vision of the Shepherd Coach Network? Where do you want to go? What impact are you trying to make?
Well, there are a couple answers to that. First of all, one of the things I shared with athletes, but with people I work with and now with myself, you can spend your life anywhere where you get invested. And I think that the goal is, first of all, to be investing, not to just spend my life as a man my age, to say, I want to continue to give purpose. But on a very practical note, I started Shepherd Coach in 2019, and I was the Lone Ranger, right? Then I pulled in another guy, and I really prayed about it and thought it through. And I just gave Shepherd Coach to another guy who's younger than me because at 74, how much value? I mean, I think I have value, but how much energy am I going to have in the next, if God allows me to live 10 years, 5 years? Arrogant to think, I'm going to live through time.
Yeah, let's
But
pray
the
for let's pray.
and I think this is not for everybody listening, but
Mhm.
it's often easier to run the race than to pass the baton. And I think that, as a track, and I'm not a track person, but you can be the fastest 100-yard dash person in the world. But if you drop the baton when you hand it off. And
Yeah.
so I handed the baton off of coaching at sports. And then with UPI, when I retired, I literally bought a golden baton, not real gold, and put a verse on it. And we had a retreat, and we had about 60 pro athletes there. And in front of the whole group, the guy that was taking over, I handed him that baton and I didn't take my hands off it. And I said, Mickey, as soon as I take my hands off of this, I'm not going to even be in the infield. I'm walking out of the stadium because this is yours, baby. You ready for it? I think handing off batons. And so with Shepherd Coach, there's a man 20, 25 years younger than me. Everything looks the same, but now I'm the founder and I'm calling him the president. And he's taken all that backroom stuff. And we talk together. It's just I'm saying, no, man, it's yours. So he'll say, what do you think of this? I'll say, this is what I think, but you're making the decision. So I'm, in a
Yeah.
sense, the guy that I just handed the baton off to because he wants that.
Yeah.
So I think that when you say in the next 10 years is to see Matt Binkert, if you go to the website, you'll see it. Our last book we wrote together is called Shepherd Culture. His picture's on there. By the way, he was a three sport all state athlete in high school. And then he went on and played football at the University of Oregon and pole vaulting and has quite a background with coaches, right? And so 30 years, or not 30, 10 years from now.
I was like,
Yeah.
whoa.
If I'm 30 years from now, will you please interview me? Because I'll be 104
I
and
will have you on.
probably be wearing pins. But anyway, That's the vision for me now is to see him be successful with it. To be, anything with two heads is a monster. So to be able to step back and say, Matt, I still want to do everything I do, but it's under your direction now. Because why? I trust him. And that's the same as we're coaching people. They have to trust you. Well, I trust Matt. So handing the baton is what I see in the next 10 years. Hopefully it won't take that long. I mean, he's doing a great, this just happened January 1. We meet every week. We duck all this, shop and everything. But there's going to be some time where, I'm not going to be around and he's got it. And I think too many times we hold on to the baton a little too long because it's our whole personal worth, right? When we're trying to teach other men and women, hey, where's your worth? Is it in
Yeah.
things or what is it in? So I wish I could tell you, here's my plan for 5 years, 10 years.
I like it. I like it.
It's legit, man. That's what I'm doing. So you're getting the truth, the whole truth, and well, the truth plus some baloney probably too.
Man, well, with that, right? I mean, you in this, you've dropped so many gems from being curious, asking questions, changing the perspective, run the race, right? It's easier than handing off the baton, or there's so many things in this that I think people can get value from. But if you had to give one piece of advice for someone that's looking to get into becoming like a coach, right, in their own practice, what would you say that one piece of advice would be for them to like get started or be aware of on their journey?
One of the things that I shared with pro athletes often, and this is the answer, is
Mhm.
get a personal board of directors. For them, it was because they had some fame, they had some money, some of them had a lot of money, and they felt like life was just going to be the same. They went from the all-star team in baseball to I'm a successful bit. No, 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 no. That's it can translate, right? It can transfer.
Right.
But I would say to the person that's going to do that to get a personal board. What I mean by that is, hey, you 4 or 5 people, I'm going to buy breakfast. Why? Because it's the cheapest meal. But I'm going to buy breakfast. We'll get together. And the whole purpose of the hour together is for me to ask you questions about me. I want you to be transparent. I want you to tell me my strengths, my weaknesses. You have every right to ask me questions. How's my marriage doing? Because if that fails, it's going to hurt me when what I do, especially as a Christian organization. But the purpose is you're not paying them, but you're feeding them. And it's all about you. And you let them know that from the start. And you are totally vulnerable with them for the amount of time it takes for you to understand what it really means to do what you're going to do next. And so I typically would have a person that's like a banker, my very best friend, a spiritual person, a business person, because you're going to get a different perspective from them. And it's going to cost you $50 to have the meals and all that kind of stuff. Wow,
I think it's worth it.
these are people you trust. So I'm sure other people would give you other more succinct and valuable things, but I think first you have to really understand, am I built for this? And if
Right.
I'm not, then I need to go a different direction. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to do this for the money, or this is going to be simple. I'm just going to meet with people and charge them so much. And it's no, no, like you get it. It's more than that. It's the business side. It's the emotional side. It's the investment side. It's you got to have money monetizing it. That kind of thing. And if you have others that are successful already that are willing to do that, and I've had guys that have done that for 6 months, I've had guys that have done it for 2 months, but at least they've had people speaking into their lives very open, very honest, and hopefully very helpful.
That's incredible. It reminds me, I have a very, very great friend. And I guess this is like he's one of my advisors, and he's very big into his faith as well too. And he would tell me and remind me constantly to always seek counsel, right? In whatever format that is. And he mentioned that his group is a group of them together, and they come and continuously seek counsel from one another and hold no guards back. And that's what it's reminding me of. Like he has that board of advisors in a way for his life in different areas. And I think people don't appreciate that enough in their own lives, and being able to recognize who really are the people that's currently in your life that could qualify to be your board of advisors versus those you want to be your board of advisors but you probably shouldn't have them actually as a board of advisors. And I think having that discernment comes with time for sure, right? Trial and error potentially. But for yourself, how have you been able to, I guess, discern those board of advisors that you've collected so far?
Yeah, my first level is trust. I have to trust them that when they speak to me, they're not competing with me, nor do they want to tear me down. They're doing it for my best interest. I personally want to get other followers of Christ because, there's the kingdom of God, then there's the empire. The empire is our business side, the kingdom. I want to blend those two personally. And so I want people that really have been successful, whatever that means, not only in that they understand faith and they understand people, but that they have a track record too. It's not a guy that's 2 years in business and he made $100 last year. It's somebody that says, no, I've been there. Because when I was younger in particular, ready, shoot, aim was a lot of it.
I love
And
that
as
book.
a believer,
Wow.
as a believer, it was ready, shoot, help me, God, I need your help. Doing. So my criteria are trust, hopefully same worldview, and then whatever success means, somebody that's been there. They're not on the path the same amount of time I've been on. They've been on the path a longer time. And that they don't just speak from what they read, they speak from their broken hearts, from their mistakes, and from what's been successful for them. So those would be three criteria.
I love it. I love it. Where can people connect with you? Where can they find more information for you about you, connect with you? Where would that be?
All right, I'm going to do this for you. shepherdcoachnetwork.com.
There we go. Awesome.
shepherdcoachnetwork.com. And I'm glad if you want to give out my email
Of
address,
course.
that's fine. I don't want to give out my phone number, but email address is fine.
Probably, yeah. Baby steps. Baby steps. We'll
Yeah,
get to
right. If they write me, I like them, maybe I'll give them my phone number.
yeah.
But I'd say that those would be the two ways.
Perfect. Awesome, Tom. I appreciate it, man. I love this conversation more than you know. Even for myself, I'm going to go back, look at, like, write down some of those gems. And hopefully, I hope whoever's watching this, there's some takeaways for you to at least get to the next step, have better clarity, and understand, like, maybe there is a bigger purpose to what you're supposed to be doing for what you're currently doing right now, especially if you're an athlete or in that field, knowing that, like, what you're doing is a vehicle for you to ultimately get to the actual purpose of your life. But Tom, I appreciate it, man. Any last words, things you want to say to the audience?
Jermaine, always dress sharp, never cut yourself, buddy. It's going to be all good. I wish you the very best, my friend.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Tom. With that being said, guys, catch you on the next one. Peace.